As you might know from my channel, I really like the Devil May Cry series, and up until 2 years ago, it was just a series I heard about and never really gave it much thought until I played DMC5. And of course, after that, I got hooked, and I've probably mentioned that in a different video, or at least numerous times, I think. And after that, playing through all the games and whatnot, I ended up enjoying most of the other one. So with this video, I kinda just wanna give out my ranking from my least favorite to my most favorite game. So let's get into that right now, starting with my least favorite game in the series, which I feel should be obvious, but for those of you who don't know, it's Devil May Cry 2. There's quite a bit of reasons why, and I'll explain for those of you who don't know. To me, the gameplay here is just really lacking since you're unable to learn any new moves. You also have different direction attacks, and there's no real benefit to using them since it feels like you just do the same amount of damage no matter which one you do. The game also isn't very hard. The normal demons don't really attack all that often, and they don't really do much damage. And the bosses, most of them are just really far away from you, so you just have to hit them with your gun numerous times, and if not, you just, hit them with a sword maybe once or twice and that's it. You also just dodge around most of the time, and honestly it just sucks. And while I understand the game had trouble with development, I still think it kinda sucks again that this is the final product we got. I do think that this game does have some upsides. Like, it looks pretty good and it has 3 playable characters, but even that is kind of lackluster because you only really get like one character that's kind of different, and that being Trish, because she at least has the delayed inputs from DMC1, and Dante and Lucia kind of just feel like model swaps because gameplay wise they're basically not much different. But now let's move into my second favorite entry, and that has to be the Reboot. This one I feel is kind of obvious if you're familiar with the series or have seen my video on the game itself. And while I think the gameplay is far better than DMC2, the story and characters I think are just as bad as that entry. The villain is kind of just nothing, and the characters overall I wasn't really interested. While DMC has never been, super serious and the characters won't, again, all that serious, this one feels like it's trying to be taken seriously, and honestly that just kind of sucks in the end. I also thought the bosses were actually alright to fight despite the lackluster characters, and honestly there was some funny interaction with them, so I'll give the game that. The locations I also thought looked nice, and this goes same with the models and the demons. The Reboot is far from the worst game if you ask me, but frankly there were quite a bit of missteps here, and I just wish it wasn't like that just because I actually do think the game was okay, just could have been far better if Ninja Theory did try to take it in the direction that they did. Now we have the middle point for this list, and that belongs to Devil May Cry 4. I feel for this entry the gameplay is just as good if not better than the Reboot, and overall the story was pretty okay. It's got its own problems like the really bad pacing at the midway point, and Nero just isn't as interesting as I thought he would have been because I actually really liked him in DMC5, so I thought maybe this one he would have been just as cool. But honestly that's kind of whatever at this point since there's not really much changing, it's just kind of going back to it, it just ended up kind of sucking. The locations I actually thought looked really great, and they have quite of different locations like a castle, forest and whatnot, and that stuff I thought looked really cool, and visually it's just a nice contrast in comparison to the other 2 entries since a lot of it is just rundown stuff. I also found the playable characters here, including the ones in the special edition, to be pretty fun to play and adds quite a bit of variety to the mission. But I feel the only downsides here is that you play through the same exact missions you went through with Neo and Dante, which to me kinda got boring real fast since again it's just a different playable character and that's it. Now we move on to the third slot, and I think placing this next entry this high might be weird to some people considering the age and the overall clunkiness of it, and I think with that description you might know which one it is. But if you don't know, that game is Devil May Cry 1, and I actually considered putting this in second place but decided not to. The main reason, of course, it's that it's still a Force game and it's lacking a lot of the depth of later games, but it still has a lot of charm and is really fun to me. The gameplay is a lot slower here, but frankly again I don't really mind as much, and it definitely feels a lot heavier in terms of jumping, moving around, just attacking. The bosses are also really fun, and while you fight them 3 times, each time they do add in new patterns, and I think that still makes each encounter really cool. I also love the areas, they all look visually amazing despite, being in the same general location, but still the rooms stand out. I really like how creative each area transitions to another, like for example you go to the castle, to the underground, to get to the boat, and stuff like that's really cool. Well, again, it's pretty weird to play, especially with how the backgrounds move with you, and in some cases there are some odd camera angles. Overall, it's still, again, really fun, and for a first game, it's just amazing. Now we move on to the second spot, and yeah, I was considering swapping this one with DMC1 for a good while, and now I just finally decided against it. But let's get into that, and my second favorite entry ended up being Devil May Cry 5. This entry was the first one I ended up playing, only because a sibling of mine got it, so I ended up trying it out. I didn't really have any prior knowledge of the series, so I mostly went in blind, and I think even if I knew more about it, I don't think that would have changed my thoughts on it. The action is amazing, and all the playable characters are really unique and fun. I think Nero is the most fun to play for me here, since he does get a few new moves from DMC4, and he has the Devil Breakers, which give him far more options, which is amazing. Dante also has some really cool weapons like Clavier and Balrog, and I also really enjoyed the story here, without much of the context from the other games, but after playing through the other ones, I think the story definitely is a lot more than I thought originally. The game also looks amazing in every aspect, regardless of what version you get, either on the last gen consoles, the next gen ones, or PC. At most, I also do feel that the game could have had cooler looking areas, since they all feel very similar all throughout the missions, since older entries did have a lot of cooler entries, but honestly this is just a minor nitpick, at least for me. Now we finally move on to the favorite entry, and since it's the only game that's left, I think it's pretty obvious. Of course, that one is Devil May Cry 3, and to me this is the closest to a perfect Devil May Cry game. I think it does everything that DMC1 does, but far better. The Tenma Magoo is very cool to explore, and the combat is super enjoyable. It's basically the style of the series more modern combat, but while being on the PS2, it still kind of has some clung to it, and I know the HD collection is basically just that, and that's the first time I played it, and I kind of noticed it, but it's just whatever at this point, since I guess at that point, Capcom just wanted to pull it over to new consoles. And I do know that if you have a Switch, you can just buy on there and have a lot more of the modern features, or you can just mod it, but the Switch Pro is the only official one that you can get that has style change and whatever else. But even then, regardless of the version, I think it's still fun. It's just that it has some minor kinks here and there. And then we have the story, and I thought it was really cool because we got to see how Dante got his start, we got to see, Lady's backstory and just the stuff she went through, and we got to see how Virtue became Nello Angelo, and kind of his thought process, and how he kind of became the person he was in DMC5. And in the end, I think the game is, of course, amazing, but it still has its issues, but I feel that it's mostly just because of the system it was released on, like, the weapon and style issue. There are also some camera issues where I feel you can't really move it as much as I would have liked, because again, I feel a lot of that is just because of the PS2. And some bosses are kind of not the greatest, but most of them are still pretty fun to fight. And in the end, I think there's a lot to love about this game, and definitely has a lot more positives than negatives, to me at least, and it definitely owned the #1 slot. And overall, I think the series is amazing, and I think it only really has one bad entry, that being Devil May Cry 2. The Reboot and Devil May Cry 4, I still think are mostly fun games, despite all the issues with them. And for me, I could say playing through all these entries at least made me appreciate all the amazing aspects of character action games, and definitely made me fan of the genre. I also want to hear what's your favorite and least favorite entries in the Devil May Cry series, so let me know in the comments below. Thank you all for watching, and see you guys later. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow me on Twitter, which will be in the description. I will also put a playlist of all my likes and dislikes of the Devil May Cry games, so make sure to also look for that in the description below.